Hello, I'm John Rossi, a touring drummer with a love of all things animal. When I'm on the road, I visit as many zoos, aquariums. Hey, wait a minute. What's going on? Hey, what's going on there? Hello? Hello? Hello?
We interrupt your regularly scheduled program to bring you Rossifari Zoo news. News you can use from the world of zoos and conservation. Every week, we bring you breaking news and analysis from around the globe, featuring the animals you love and the people who care for them. And here's your anchorman, John Rossi.
Hi, hello, how are you? Welcome back to Rossifari Zoo News, your look at everything going on in the world of zoos, aquariums, conservation, and general animal weirdness. Let's see here. So, what to talk about in the life of John? Well, first of all, I have accepted a gig that is going to have me playing in Fort Worth, Texas for 3 weeks at the end of August and into the beginning of September. The theater I'll be playing at is called Casa Mañana, and it's considered a pretty big deal, honestly, so I'm really excited about this one. I'm going to be doing a $1 Million Quartet there, as I often do, and I'm hoping to talk to them about maybe bringing me back for one of my own shows. We'll see. Also, I will be starting to reach out to facilities in the area soon to try and set up some interviews. You never know what's going to happen, but there are actually a lot of really cool facilities within just a few hours of Fort Worth, so I'm crossing my fingers for some good interviews. Though, to be honest, I was looking at the schedule there, and I don't have, the finalized thing yet, but it's going to be a whole lot tighter than it often is for me. I don't know how many places I'll be able to get to interviews or not, but I'm going to try, y'all, because there's some cool stuff in that area. Also, the fun part of this is that I will be flying directly to Fort Worth from a gig I'm doing in Pennsylvania. And then 3 hours after our final matinee performance, I'll be flying to Calgary for the AZA conference that starts at 8 a.m. the next day. So, when that ends, I'll then fly back to PA to grab my car and then head directly to Toronto for the AAZV conference. So, good normal life stuff happening in August and September this year. But what can I say? I'm really excited about all of it. Oh, and speaking of the AZA conference. So I mentioned that I'll be attending this year, not just to cover it for Rossifari, but because the Safe Red Panda program will be having both a closed session and an open session, one that's open to the other people attending the conference. It's become even more important that I go to these because, I'm not just on the steering committee, but I've agreed to be the co-chair of the Public Engagement Subcommittee, one of the 2 subcommittees the program currently has. Actually, when I first agreed to do it, and no one stepped up as a co-chair, and I was just going to be the chair, I was concerned. It was something I was willing to do, but it seemed like it was going to be a lot. Then I got an email saying that Jen Torpy of the Pittsburgh Zoo hadn't been able to attend the digital meeting we had that day, but that she wanted to co-chair with me, and I was all about it. I was so relieved. I kind of thought that when I volunteered to take on those duties, that it would start a slow clap kind of thing and other people would step up, but that was not what happened. But it's okay. Jen is here now, and we are going to do this together, and it's going to be amazing. But yeah, already your boy has been scheduling meetings and working on setting up a consultant that wants to help us out, and just all kinds of stuff. I'm doing the thing, y'all, and it feels pretty good. And hey, before I move off this topic, I just need to drop the biggest, most sincere thank you to a name that you'll all recognize, Colleen Lenahan. Colleen not only contributes to Zoo News all the time, and also really holds me accountable and has deep conversations with me and is willing to challenge my thoughts and beliefs, which is something that I think a lot of people just in this world in general are nervous about. Buzz is not. Buzz was just barking because he also likes to challenge me, but in different ways. Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm trying to be all sincere here. But Colleen recently sent me a package to congratulate me for joining the steering committee of Safe Red Panda. It included a sticker, a shirt, a stuffed animal magnet-y type thing, all red panda, of course, from the gift shop at the Akron Zoo where she works. There was also a really sweet and funny card involved. So I just want to say, Colleen, thank you so much. The thought that went into that gift means the world to me, and I love every single part of it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And now... All right, so I'm going to start this section with a follow-up from my story about the Natural Bridge Zoo situation. In that deep dive, I mentioned that both the Natural Bridge Zoo and the place where Asha the elephant ended up, Two Tails Ranch, both participate in elephant rides, leading me to question their ethics. I was especially surprised to discover that Two Tails Ranch allows elephant rides since they are ZAA accredited. Well, this week, I have begun to reconsider my views on elephant riding. Now, I need to pause here for a second to point something out. One of my favorite things when I started this podcast is that I was an outsider to the industry, learning all kinds of stuff, but always coming at it from the perspective of, I don't know most of this stuff. I mean, if y'all listen at all, you know that one of my favorite things to do is remind my guests in interview episodes that my qualification for this podcast is that I am a drummer. So yeah, with that said, I can't really say that I'm an outsider anymore. I'm not a zookeeper, but I've started to use the term I'm an inside outsider. I've spent the last almost 4 full years studying this industry and reporting on it and talking to people in it. That's the same amount of time people take to get a bachelor's degree. And it puts me in an interesting place sometimes because I know y'all trust me. I regularly have listeners reach out to me for my takes on places or policies or animal care things or just things they see at local facilities. And honestly, the level of trust y'all exhibit in those conversations is really amazing, and it means a lot to me. It also means that I've become a lot less speculative on here over the years, or, maybe a better way to put it is a lot more responsible. I say a lot less of my own thoughts if they aren't backed by reputable sources, if I'm not confident in them, But when I say that I'm starting to look at elephant rides a little differently, I am reverting back to old John a little bit, to the outsider, looking at this situation with fairly fresh eyes and with some data, but it doesn't reach the threshold I normally hold my sources to before saying something on here. At least I'm not sure if it does. You see, I actually got to have a conversation with 2 different people who make their living at elephant sanctuaries in Thailand, part of the home range of Asian elephants. And both of these people informed me that there are scientific papers that show that elephant rides are no different for the elephants in question than, say, camel rides or horseback riding or any other kind of domestic animal we use for transportation. The problem, they said, is that these papers are research papers done by independent scientists in Thailand, but they are written in Thai and have not been translated and published in journals in English or in any other languages more commonly spoken within the scientific community at large and the animal welfare community in particular. I was even sent links to a few of those papers, and it turns out I don't read Thai. I was going to run them through a translator program, but the truth is, those things are so fraught with errors. I'd be worried that I wouldn't get the nuance of the paper, especially when it comes to things like who is funding the studies and such, which is, something I'm always careful to analyze. But these are people who take care of elephants at a sanctuary that seems, from what I can tell, to have a good reputation and to do good work. So as with many complex ethical issues that pertain to animals, I'm not entirely sure where I fall on this topic anymore. And I'm curious to see what I'll learn from trying to delve into these papers more and also from talking to other experts. I do know the gist of one of the papers is that basically any elephant that lives in human care and is well-trained and has a relationship with their keepers and trainers and such, kind of becomes more like a domesticated animal than many other, maybe less intelligent animals in human care. I've had a lot of people over the years kind of on both sides of like the animal rights argument use, and this is a term I'm trying not to use anymore, but it's really the best way to put it, but say that there's a big difference between, captive animals and domesticated animals. But this paper seems to posit that elephants, captive elephants are closer to domesticated animals than other ones. So I thought that was an interesting distinction. And I don't quite know, how far I believe that or not, but it's an interesting thought. And as long as they are well taken care of, animals who work at farms and such are not considered to be unethical, except by the most militant groups and apparently all of the vegans who ever got on the internet. I don't know. But anyway, I'll keep looking into this, but I'm curious to hear if y'all have thoughts, especially if you have any insights from working with elephants or anything like that. It's something that I'm thinking a lot about right now, and I wanted to take the time to share that with all of y'all and be open and be honest, and also hopefully maybe spark some learning on my part or on your part, or at least some discussion. So anyway, yeah, that's my headline-ish, story-ish for the week, and I hope y'all found it interesting. But that brings us to our births. Our friends at Roger Williams Park Zoo have welcomed an adorable Tamandua pup named Gustavo to the family. Gustavo is the offspring of Salvador and Karina and is thriving behind the scenes so far. And our friends at the Greenville Zoo have announced the birth of 3 female bat-eared fox kits, or bat-eared foxlets, to Mom Lily and Dad Otis. These weren't the only bat-eared foxes born recently, as the Henry Dorley Zoo announced the birth of 2 kits of their own as well. Dingle Aquarium has announced the hatching of 4 Humboldt penguin chicks. Now, their entire Humboldt colony is named after different types of cheese. So the 4 chicks are named Feta, Halloumi, Edam, and Parmesan, and they were born to parents Blue, Brie, Wensleydale, and Gary. I'm surprised they haven't named one of their penguins after the cheesiest cheese around. I can just see it now. The newest penguin chick, John Rossi's Jokes. Like this one. Why do you listen? Anyway, Zoo Atlanta has welcomed a baby Schmitz Guinan, which, if you don't know, is a type of monkey. Sedgwick County Zoo has successfully hatched a Siak, also known as a Guam kingfisher. The chick is a female, which is particularly important as there are currently only 45 breeding female Guam kingfishers left in the world. Now, this little one was born as part of a collaborative breeding program, hoping to release more of this incredibly endangered animal back into the wild on a predator-free island. Other zoos involved include the Cincinnati Zoo, the National Aviary, Tracy Aviary, Brookfield Zoo, the St. Louis Zoo, Smithsonian's National Zoo, the Philadelphia Zoo, and Disney's Animal Kingdom. Woodland Park Zoo has announced the birth of 3 snow leopard cubs. These are the first snow leopards born at the zoo since 2017 and are actually the offspring of one of those cubs. Aw, they grow up so fast. The Fort Worth Zoo has announced the birth of 3 toucan chicks, and the Phoenix Zoo has announced the birth of 2 lion cubs. These are the first lilets born at the zoo since 1976. So this is a big deal for everyone at the Phoenix Zoo. And then we turn to our deaths for the week. The Monterey Bay Aquarium has announced the passing of Rosa the sea otter. Rosa was 24 years old, making her the oldest animal at the aquarium. She was best known for being an incredible surrogate mother. In her time at the aquarium, she served as a surrogate to 15 stranded sea otter pups. She was also playful until the very end and was a fan favorite at the aquarium. Rosa is greatly missed. Point Defiance Zoo has announced the passing of Sanjiv, a 12-year-old Sumatran tiger. Sanjiv suffered from a spinal disease which led to discomfort that became unable to be medically managed. This was actually just one of many medical issues the tiger was facing, and in the end it was obvious that the best decision was to euthanize. Actually, a Cameron Park Zoo also recently said goodbye to a Sumatran tiger. Kusing was 15 years old, making him the oldest male Sumatran tiger in North America and the 3rd oldest in the world. Kusing was suffering from lymphoma, and a necropsy showed that complications secondary to treating the cancer were what actually led to the end of his life. But they were doing amazing work and kept him going, and doing as best as he could for as long as they could. So he will be missed. And now, last in this section, and this story is going to transition right to the rest of the zoo news topics. Our friends at Bright's Zoo recently said goodbye to Leaf, a Sitatunga who was only 8 years old. Leaf died when he choked on a plastic container of squeezable applesauce that was dropped into his exhibit by a guest who snuck it in against the rules. Outside food is prohibited at the zoo for this very reason, and in recent years, Bright's Zoo has instituted a bag check policy to make sure stuff like this doesn't happen. A lot of people have complained about it, though. And so this means that the person who brought in the applesauce broke the rule and snuck it in a manner that would evade detection. And this act of defiance and selfishness ended up costing an animal its life. Now, no one knows who the culprit was or how exactly the container got into Leaf's throat. It's possible it just blew away after a kid ate it. It's possible someone thought Leaf would like a lick and he snatched the whole thing. I don't know. No one can say for certain, but a beautiful and beloved animal died that had a lot of life ahead of it because of this negligence. And it's not super okay. And so we're going to move on from deaths, but we're staying in this topic a little bit because our first story in this area, at least it has a happier ending. But earlier this month, the Cincinnati Zoo announced that their bonobos troupe had been off exhibit for a little while because of an outbreak of human metapneumovirus, or HMPV. This disease is in the same family as RSV, the disease that claimed the life of a 3-year-old bonobo at the zoo last year. While it is not 100% certain how the bonobos caught the disease, the outbreak came after multiple reports of food being thrown into the bonobos' habitat. Now, viruses like HMPV and RSV can both be carried asymptomatically by humans and can be passed along by contact with food. The staff at the zoo is very cognizant of these diseases, and as such, they use proper PPE and wash the foods before giving them to the bonobos. Therefore, it is pretty likely that the disease arrived through the food being tossed on exhibit by guests. It's the most likely scenario. So, yeah, 2 stories in a row about how the neglect of guests either definitely led to the death of, or quite likely led to the illness of, many beautiful animals. So look, I'm confident I don't need to tell you this, as my listeners are the best zoo guests around. But just in case, do not throw things into exhibits. Do not ignore the rules of the zoo, even if they seem silly to you. I'm sure that many people who have complained about the bag checks at Bright Zoo believe that the no outside food rule and the bag check policy is just to make sure they make money from their concessions. No, it turns out there's actually another reason, and one that really matters. And, last but not least, what I want to say to y'all, since again, I know you're not the ones who are doing this thing, but if you see something, say something. Now, you can be dumb like me and say something to the guest directly. This is actually probably how I will die someday. I can just see the headlines now. Self-important red panda loving loudmouth shot at zoo. But if you're not comfortable doing that, and believe me, I understand why you wouldn't be, most zoos have their security phone number listed in easy-to-find places on their website and sometimes even posted around the zoo. And look, I'm not a big fan of snitching in general, but when it comes to the welfare of animals in human care, I'm all for it. All right, so moving on from that, the Gladys Porter Zoo has announced that over the past 3 months, they have taken in and cared for 19 infant spider monkeys, most of which were seized from smugglers at border crossings in Texas. Now, these baby monkey seizures are directly because of the demand for them in the illegal pet trade in the U.S. Monkeys do not make good pets. Most exotic animals do not make good pets, so I really wish these people would stop it. 2 really interesting stories come from the Toledo Zoo recently. First of all, they made a surprising announcement about the baby elephant at the zoo. When the elephant was born, it was named Kirk, because they thought it was a male elephant, but it turns out that Kirka is actually female. So it turns out that identifying the sex of a baby elephant anyway, is challenging because the sex organs of an elephant are internal when they are young. And you can feel them through palpitation, but they actually feel very similar to each other, like the male and female sex organs. So yeah, this happens from time to time. It's not an uncommon thing with baby elephants, but I find it fascinating. It's actually really good news for the zoo and for fans of Kirka, because male elephants have to leave the herd fairly early as they grow up, but as a female, Kirka will be able to stay at the zoo a lot longer, so fans there can continue to watch her grow. And the second story out of Toledo has me very excited. The Toledo Zoo has announced the creation of a new state-of-the-art facility at the zoo that will serve as a regional distribution hub for other AZA-accredited zoos and aquariums to start to receive Tasmanian devils, 8 of which are already on their way to Toledo from Australia. Now, Toledo has housed Tassies for a decade now, and their expertise with these incredible animals, along with their relationship with the Tasmanian government, is what has allowed this next step to happen. I am so excited for more Tassies in the U.S. They are truly some of the most remarkable animals to see at zoos. I love them, and I can't wait for there to be more of them here. It's just so exciting. Yay! All right, so this next story has an element of deja vu to it. The leader of a facility in San Francisco has come under fire for bad management practices, including abusing the finances of the facility and bad leadership. Now, I know some of you are thinking, John, you already did a deep dive into the issues surrounding the president of the San Francisco Zoo. But this is actually another facility in the same city. The Aquarium of the Bay has recently seen its CEO forced to resign after concerns were brought about the lavish spending he was doing. This stuff, y'all, this was truly next level. Apparently, he used money from the aquarium to, wait for it, host a rock concert in Dubai. He spent $286,000 on travel alone last year. And this was happening while the aquarium was regularly behind on rent payments during that year. Now, I'm not going to go into more details because I'm not looking to kick a facility when it's down. But I do love that he only resigned when facing enormous pressure to do so. The same is true of the treasurer on the board of directors. Yeah, like even when this first came out as public knowledge, my dude was like, well, I'm not getting off this cash cow. But now said cow has been put to pasture. And y'all, I have to ask, what is going on at zoological facilities in San Francisco? A pair of camels escaped from the petting zoo area of Cedar Point Amusement Park in Ohio and took off running along the midway. Now, while no one was injured, there were plenty of videos showing the camels running very close to human guests and causing quite the panic. In fact, a man in a wheelchair just avoided being trampled by one of the camels. As of this recording, Cedar Point is unaware of how the camels escaped. And that's not the only escape story this week, as Alex the alligator also escaped recently. A company named Thorny Ridge Exotics was recently brought to a Kansas City middle school for a petting zoo-style event featuring baby llamas, alpacas, goats, rabbits, and a young alligator named Alex. Alex's mouth was taped shut during the event to avoid any potential injuries. Now, Alex is around 2 years old, so he's only around 14 inches long. And at one point, a student went up to one of the caretakers and asked why they didn't bring the alligator this year, pointing to the now empty cage. Multiple experts were brought in to look for Alex, but he was nowhere to be found, and after a few days, the search was called off. 11 days after the petting zoo happened, a custodian at the middle school noticed movement when he was taking the trash out, and there was Alex the alligator, with his mouth still taped shut, walking near the door. The alligator has been taken to a shelter where it is being given a thorough exam, but Thorny Ridge Exotics is hoping to have the gator returned to them after the exam, saying someone must have stolen it from the exhibit. This despite the fact that a teacher had a picture of the alligator with its whole head sticking out of a hole in the exhibit. Meanwhile, the school has gotten in trouble for not obtaining the permits necessary to have animals at the school. The whole thing is just one big mess. And man, I'm really glad Alex was found, and alligators definitely move at a different pace and can cope with things differently than many other animals. But wandering around with a mouth taped shut for 11 days? Not a fan of this story at all. Big fan of responsible animal care, handling, and management, but there are sure a lot of stories about the non-responsible version of those things this week. It makes me sad. But I don't want to end this segment that way, so we'll end with a great transition to conservation news. So more than 3,000 southern Corroboree frog eggs have been released by Zoos Victoria into Mount Kosciuszko National Park in Australia. This is the most eggs that have ever been released at one time from Zoos Victoria. The Corroboree frogs are a charismatic species that produce really beautiful songs. So hopefully this release will lead to more visitors to Mount Kosciuszko hearing these songs where they are meant to be heard. Amazing, amazing conservation work by Zoos Victoria.
Conservation, news time. Oh yeah.
The World Health Organization has confirmed that a human has passed away from bird flu for the first time since the recent pandemic began. Now, this is a very unique case. I've talked about being worried about this happening before, but not quite like this. This is a subtype of bird flu that is not the main one that has been circulating in livestock in the U.S. and has infected, though not fatally, a few dairy workers. Also, the person who died had underlying conditions that led them to be bedridden before they contracted the bird flu. So this is not exactly the same thing I've been worried about, and that's great news. But still, it is the first time it's happened during the this current season of bird flu. So I figured it was worth mentioning here. Hopefully, this is the last human death from this disease. Okay, so now we move on to Przewalski's horses, also known as pea horses, or the animals that people see at zoos and say, oh, look at the Przewalski. Hey, kids, look at the pretty horses. Now, in case you don't know the story, these horses went extinct in the wild in the 1960s, but conservation efforts and breeding programs at amazing zoos have seen these species be re-released into the wild, with a current world population of around 2,000 individuals, showing just how incredible this reintroduction story has been. They are the last true wild horses in the world. And I now have two stories about Przewalski's horses that couldn't be further from each other. So, first of all, Przewalski's horses have been reintroduced to central Kazakhstan for the first time since they went extinct there. 7 new horses have arrived and been released into the wild there from Berlin and Prague. This is obviously huge news, and the photos of the horses running through the area they used to populate are just incredible to see. These 7 horses represent the start of a new population in the area that will hopefully continue to grow both with additional reintroductions and hopefully, through natural breeding as well. So just an incredible win. And now the absolutely wild follow-up to that story. Recently, multiple people have been posting on social media claiming to have rescued Przewalski's horses. So a person named Kinsey Huckabee in Colorado claims that she saved a horse from the Peabody Kill Pen in Kansas. That was it was originally believed to be a fjord cross horse, but that they were unsure when they rescued it, so they did a DNA test. They received the results, and apparently the male horse they recently rescued is a 100% purebred Przewalski's horse. What? How? Right? Now, they have put up additional videos saying they reached out to zoos and other rescues and that they have been told they are allowed to keep him. But they're not sure if they want to. They want to do what is best for him. So for now, they plan to at least keep him short term. A Przewalski's horse. And then another rescue, the Lazy Bee Equine Rescue and Sanctuary in Utah, rescued a female horse, and they also believe it to be a Przewalski's horse. They have submitted the DNA test, but it'll be a few weeks until they have the results. It definitely looks like one, though. Amusingly, there is something kind of, funny about this, I guess. I mean, overall, this is not funny. It's Przewalski's horses being found in kill pens and such. But the first horse has been named Shrek, and in response, the second one has been dubbed Fiona. So that's cute. I like to keep it light when I can, and that's the only way to keep this light. This story is shocking. It is my understanding that every single Przewalski's horse is tracked, so I have no clue how this has happened or if it's some kind of elaborate hoax. Przewalski's horses are able to breed with other horse species, even though they actually have 2 more chromosomes than other horse species, and the offspring tend to look exactly like Przewalski's horses. So it is possible that Fiona is a hybrid, but unless the DNA test was faked, Shrek is apparently just a true Przewalski's horse. Now, I want to point out that none of this is confirmed by any major media that I've seen, though some do seem to be starting to pick up on it. And some of the stories I've seen about this whole situation say that the system lost track of 4 horses, 3 mares, and 1 stud. If that is accurate, and I am, again, in no way saying that it is, there may still be 2 more Przewalski's horses just floating around out there, or maybe potentially ready to be killed with their incredibly valuable genetics ending up who knows where. This is astonishing to me, and it's one of those things where it could end up being a simple story, or it could be something that we end up coming back to in conservation news, for the next weeks, months, years. How the heck does this wildly tracked population, I mean, we talk a lot on here about animal trafficking, but like you can traffic red pandas or pangolins because not every member of the species is tracked. Most of them are not. Supposedly every Przewalski's horse is tracked. I am so confused by this one, y'all. If any of y'all see anything about this, please share it with me.
It's time for other news. It's time for other news. Hey, now, right now, it's time. It's time for other news. Hey, it's a segue to the part called other news.
A white buffalo calf has been born at Yellowstone National Park. This is cool and newsworthy of itself, but in this case, it's extra special because the Lakota tribe has long held a prophecy that the birth of a white buffalo would portend better times ahead. And look, y'all, I'm not religious, I'm not superstitious, though I am a little stitious. But with the way the world has been going the last few years, I'll take what I can get. So, yeah, better times are ahead because of an adorable white baby buffalo, and I am here for it. Of course, this is the Rossifari podcast, and I can't end other news on that nice and normal of a story. So I believe it is my duty to inform you that juvenile dolphins often mimic the mating behaviors they see in adult dolphins as part of their play with each other. They do this with members of either sex, by the way. So, yeah, just a bunch of young dolphins pretending to get it on with each other to learn and play. And now scientists believe this actually directly correlates to successful mating once they've reached maturity. Dolphin sex. Now that's how you end other news.
Oh, animal, holidays. Animal holidays. Hey!
All right, it is still June, which is Zoo and Aquarium Month, World Oceans Month, and Orca Month. Now, for our individual days, we have June 14th is Sea Cucumber Day and National Skunk Day. June 15th is Megalodon Day, so I guess go visit your local zoo or aquarium that has a megalodon. I don't know. Anyway, June 16th is World Sea Turtle Day. Yay! June 17th launches Pollinator Week and is also World Croc Day. June 18th is Veterinary Appreciation Day. The 19th is World Albatross Day. And the 20th is American Eagle Day and International Horseshoe Crab Day. And those are your animal holidays for the week. All right, so there you have it, folks. Another week of Rossifari Zoo news is in the books. Hey, I want to take a moment to ask y'all, it's been a while since I've asked for this, but would y'all mind taking a minute to leave me a 5-star rating on whatever app you listen on, or especially if you could go to Apple Podcasts and write a review. Literally every single review makes it like that much more likely that people are going to find my podcast. So it really does help. And also it makes me really happy. And let me know if you do it, because Apple weirdly doesn't, nor does Spotify. None of these places do. So let me know if you leave a rating or a review. Honestly, if you're in a different country other than the United States, I can't even see the reviews. I believe that you write them. I've heard from people like in Australia that I have great reviews, but I can't see them. So bit of a bummer on my end, but it really does help. So if you're willing, it would mean a lot. I'm begging y'all. No, I'm not begging. But another way you can help the podcast is by becoming a patron, supporting the podcast for as little as $3 a month. And if you become a Red Panda level patron, which is my highest tier, then you'll get to hear your name at the end of every episode when I say something roughly like this. I'd like to say thank you to my Red Panda level patrons, Dr. Laura Shank, Dr. Stephen Williamson, Barbara Bennett, and Jenny Owens. I'd also like to say thank you to everyone who contributed stories to the episode this week. Those people are Anya Keene, Colleen Lenahan, Kim Cooley-Croninger, Carrie Kirkpatrick, Kevin Williams, Emily Rockbook, Dr. Laura Shank, Marianne Rossi, Nikki Morley, Jay Meredith, Matt Patford, Ann Yoshioka, Jess Wells, Daniel Cohen, Rowena White, Lizard Dunlevy, Dr. Zoe Rossi, Ali Malensky, and Ann McEachran. Thank you all so much. And we'll be back here on Tuesday with another great episode, an interview episode, and then back on Friday for more zoo news. So until all those crazy things happen, all I can do is tell y'all that the words Newsy Credits Backwards are Steider Swine. The Rossifari podcast is produced, hosted, and engineered by John Rossi. Editing and fact-checking by John and Dr. Zoe Rossi. Our theme song is Sevens by Nathan Burke, performed by Nathan and John. Interrupting John theme and additional voices by Taylor Isaac Gray. You can reach John directly on Instagram and Facebook at Rossifari or by email at rossifaripod@gmail.com. Rossifari is part of the Daydreamer Media Network. Now, stop listening to me and go visit a zoo. Our friends at Willie Rogers Zoo Park. What? Did I just have a stroke? It's Roger Williams. Roger Williams. Who's Willie Rogers?